Good day, everyone. It's good to be back to you again. At the last class, finished up. We finished up the course, but like I promised you that we're going to do a kind of revision, go through the work again, um, so that to be a kind of to refresh your mind on what we have done before you go for your exam. We'll start from this topic one again. We talked about the concept of research and project. We said that at the center of any discussion of project writing lies the concept of research. Research is something you must have to do in your project. So we need to understand first what the term research means. We said it was gotten from a French word, recherche, meaning to look for again. When you're researching something, you're looking for the answer to something. When you do it the first time and you don't get what you actually wanted to get, you have to do it again and again and again. That is the word to do it again. Research, to look for again. Re, in French language means again. Do it again and again and again. And then chercher, to look for. Look for it. You're not satisfied. You go back and look for it again. So the idea was born of the fact that when someone is searching for something, it is expected that he has an idea, however faint or clear, about what to do to find that thing. You don't just dabble into something like that. You have a faint idea. At least know something a little about what you're going in to do. And that's where your literature review comes in. Okay. Now we're not going deep into I just want to pick up some very important the key points in what we have done before. These are things references made by different people identifying how to identify a problem, working on the research. Okay, now let's look at this. In the words of Odeniro, 2001, research is a science of knowledge through investigation that is concerned in systematic way of finding information on an issue. It's a systematic way, do it in a systematic way. Thus, ISA 2003, deducting from the wide range of opinions that contained in definition above, concluded that the following are considered as central to the idea of research. You have it as a process which is systematic and organized rather than haphazard. You don't go into research anyhow. It has to be done systematically. It's not a child's play. It's something that is done by adults who are ready to do the work. The existence and proper definition of a problem to be investigated. You're looking at a problem, you want to do an investigation, you first of all have to define the problem. Collection, analysis, and interpretation of relevant data towards arriving at solutions to problems. You define your problem, you state your problem, and then you go about collecting your data. When you collect your data, you analyze the data you have collected, and then you interpret. When you interpret properly, then you're able to get your conclusion and then do your recommendation. Generalizing outcome of findings towards better handling of similar events in the future. Now, we also talked about the characteristics of a project, characteristics of a research project. It must begin on the basis of a problem in mind. You must have something in mind. There must be something you're thinking about getting solution to. You want to resolve something. You have something in mind before you go into the research. So on the basis of a problem in mind, for which purpose the research sets to resolve. Generally speaking, it is believed that there cannot be a research project in the absence of a problem of interest. So the 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 research comes out of the need to solve a particular problem. That's one of the first things you do, stating the problem. When you state the problem, you begin to go into research on how to solve that particular problem. That the outcomes or findings of a typical project should help to develop generalizations, principles, and theories, which, when applied in other similar situations in the future, should produce the same results. That is, that the methods employed to arrive at the results or findings should be reproducible, and yield same results under varying circumstances elsewhere. C. That the process of conducting research must of necessity be as systematic and empirical as possible through the collection of relevant data for the project. To achieve both B and C, there is need for careful and appropriately selected research plan, otherwise known as design or method. You must have to get a proper design or method to handle the work. And then in the end, your findings should contribute something new to the growth of knowledge in the field of study. I kept stressing on this. Whatever you're doing, for it to be a proper research, it must have to add, add something new to the knowledge already in existence. Otherwise, it is not a research. So, research projects must help to expand further the present frontiers of knowledge. So, it must have to add to the already existing knowledge in that field. There must have to be a difference, an addition to what people already know in that particular field. The processes involved in a research project. Okay, we talked about these processes: identification of a researchable problem, clear and concise statements of the problem, formulating necessary research questions, and then collecting required data for the research. This collection of data is very important. If you collect the right data, you will get the right results. But if you don't collect your data properly, you will not be able to get the right results. We have presenting for analysis and discussing the data collected. You have to present your analysis very well. Since the researcher will basically collect raw data from the field of study, it's expected that such data are presented first and then subjected to discussions and interpretations. So you need to interpret the data very well. There are so many methods of doing this depending on such things as the type of research in question, the type of instruments you use to gather your data, the types of data collected at the end. And then we talked about drawing inferences, conclusions, and recommendations. You should be able to do this very well in order to make the proper recommendations. This is your recommendations that will really show that there is an addition you're giving to present knowledge. Then we talked about why we actually go on research projects. The question, why research projects, is a very fundamental one, which seeks to know the importance of research projects. You don't go into research without knowing why you're actually going into your research. You don't walk along the road without knowing your destination, without knowing why you're actually walking along the road. So you need to know why you're doing this research project. Okay. Now we also looked at the importance of research in society. The importance of research in the society. It's used for advancing the frontier of knowledge. Like we said, when you do a research, you add to previous knowledge. So it helps to advance the frontier of knowledge. It promotes progress in the society, and it enables man to relate more effectively with his environment. It assists man to accomplish his purpose, helps man to resolve his conflict. Now, how is project writing different from research? He talks about this. He said that research is not just, that is a difference between project writing and then research. The New Webster's Dictionary of the English Language 1992 defines project as a course of action intended or considered possible, a systematic planned undertaking. It goes further to define research projects as a set of tasks for a class of school children in which, for a given period of time, subjects are taught with special reference to some chosen topics, and pupils are encouraged to make independent inquiries for supplement formal teaching. So, writing, on the other hand, is the process of arranging words in logical order and carefully chosen so that a reader can understand what the writer means clearly. We look at, okay, let me go back to this project and research. Research is more like a higher level of project writing. It's a senior brother to project writing. That's why you see research being done by people in postgraduate studies, master's levels, and all, not just ordinary project writing that you see undergraduates write. So there are different things. But research is a higher authority than project. Let's put it that way. Okay. Now we are looking at okay. Let's go down to, I want to pick the very important. Everything is important, but at least there are some certain things you really need to know. We look at this scientific research and common sense. What is common sense? Practical good sense and judgment gained from experience rather than special knowledge from school of study. Not just what you learned, what your lecturer taught you in school. Is a good sense of judgment gained from experience. What we consider to be common sense depends upon our prejudices. Common sense behavior patterns are learned only by practice or by listening to one's elders, discussing their experiences, and trying to draw analysis between what happened previously and experiences we are likely to encounter in the future. So your common sense, you get it more like from your experiences. When you listen to elders, when you listen to people that have been here years before you came in, people that have been in the world years before you came into the world, they've passed through so many experiences, and when you stay close to them, you get to know so much, learn so much from them. What scientific research does is to provide special knowledge as opposed to common knowledge about a phenomenon of relationship. That's why research is not just an ordinary thing that you do like as a child's play. Some striking distinction between scientific research and common sense. Scientific research is much more systematic. It systematically builds its theoretical structures, tests them for internal consistency, and subjects aspects of them to empirical tests. Common sense, on the other hand, may not be as creative as scientific research. It rests its judgment on experience. A new idea is reasonable and admissible as long as it looks like the old ones. In most cases, fanciful explanation of natural and human phenomena are blindly accepted. Not the word blindly, they are blindly accepted. Like you have an illness being related to an evil deed. It's an illness that should be medically treated. People would tend to relate it to as something evil, something that maybe somebody did, maybe somebody's ancestors did, and all that. when really it doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just a medical problem. And then economic slump being attributed to some angry gods. When there's a fall in an economy, people begin to attribute it to some strange gods that, according to them, they will need to appease. Scientific research systematically and empirically tests theories and hypotheses. The man in the street tests his hypothesis too, but rather selectively. He selects evidence simply because it is consistent with his hypothesis. Okay? Like the hypothesis, you have the place of the woman is in the kitchen. It's believed that the place of the woman is in the kitchen. That is the woman's office, not the place of a man. So based on what one believes, the answer may probably be yes. That is basing it on common sense. A scientific approach, on the other hand, will always insist on systematic, controlled, and empirical testing of hypotheses. The hypothesis will have to be tested. You don't just pick it up and believe it like that. You have to pass through some empirical testing. Scientific researcher is never satisfied with his own preconceptions and hypotheses. He must test them in the field. You see the difference now. When you're researching, it must be tested. It's not a matter of this is what I already know. This is what I believe. The gods are angry. So that is why the economy has fallen. This just is what you believe. No. You must have to put it into test. You must have to go to the field, get your data, and run through your test. And based on what the results of your test, you'll be able to arrive at your conclusion. The scientist tries systematically to rule out variables that are possible causes of the effect he's studying, rather than the variables he has hypothesized to be causes. A layman seldom bothers to control his explanations of observed phenomena in a systematic manner. He ordinarily makes little effort to control extraneous sources of influence. Okay, now we also talked about different methods of acquiring or attaining knowledge. We talked of the method of tenacity, when somebody holds firmly to the truth that he knows. He knows this to be truth, and he holds firmly to it. We talked about the method of authority based on a belief. For example, you believe that the Bible says something. Whatever the Bible says is true. You believe it because the Bible says so. Or the mother says so. You believe so much in your mother. Your mother has said this. You believe that your mother can never deceive you. She can never tell you a lie. So because your mother has said this particular thing, oh, you believe it. Or a renowned economist says so. This person is a professional in this field, so because he has spoken, it is so. Another one is the a prior method. It relies on arguments with reason and not necessarily with experience. That's a rationalistic position. Then the next one is a method of science. It relies on observation or evidence from the field. That's on ground. That's where your research comes in. It's not a matter of your what your mother says, what your father says, what your president, your head of state, whatever he says, whatever your lecturer says. No, it borders on what the evidence you're seeing on ground. It doesn't matter what anybody says. What is that evidence? What is your data telling you? What is your analysis telling you? There is much inclination towards neutrality or objectivity. Personal beliefs, perceptions, biases, values, and the rest of them, they are all de-emphasized here as much as possible. The important thing is, what do you have on ground? What is the evidence? That's the method of science. Okay? Now, the next one, topic 2, we talked about types and methods of research. We talked of types and methods of research. We talked about the basic, pure or fundamental research, and we also talked about the applied research. Okay? The methods Methods of research, we have the social survey, historical, case studies, Delphi, bibliometrics, and citations. Experimental research too. The social survey is a method where the research subjects run into hundreds or even thousands spreading across a large area. You seek opinions of individuals on a particular problem. That's where you have your questionnaire. You give it out to people. You seek their opinions. Opinion of Mr. A may be different from opinion of Mr. B, and all of them. So you gather all the questionnaires and then you analyze what you got. Historical research is got considering the word historia, which means searching to find out. Is a Greek word. Historical, you find out, you look out for past things that have happened in the past. Its aim is essentially to interpret past trends of attitudes, events, and facts, things that have already taken place before the present. You look out for them, you get them from documents and so many other things, official records, bibliographies, and so on. Then the next one is a case study. You study a particular case. There's a particular case in point with a view of examining in great depth and extent the characteristics of that individual unit. So you're looking at a particular case. Delphi studies systematic approach to the generation of some consensus opinion among a group of carefully selected and anonymous respondents. Now, the researcher, you look for experts in that particular field of study, and then you get their opinions on the topic of research. Once collected, all the responses will be synthesized into a form of questionnaire, and then you still make the questionnaire available to those experts for ranking. You go to bibliometrics, where you use library information. You go to the library, you get information, make inquiries from there. Then citation analysis is also common in the field of library information, like the bibliometrics. You cite references in selected journals to find out the common journals cited by researchers in a particular discipline. Okay? Now we look at the experimental research. This is the most popular and perhaps the oldest form of research. We deliberately control and manipulate conditions which we have reason to believe determine the area in which we are interested. We have the experimental group and the control group. Okay? Then we went further to topic 3, planning the writing of a research project. We looked at introduction, what to plan for, how to choose a suitable topic, factors to consider in choosing a suitable research topic. I was talking about choosing a topic because you have to choose your topic properly. Then we looked at personal and social factors to consider in undertaking a research. Personal consideration, that's your own person. You look at whether the problem is in line with your goals and expectations. Are you really interested in the problem? Or you just pick it to fulfill all righteousness? You need to be interested in that particular problem. It will help you and make it easier for you. Do I possess or can I acquire the necessary skills? You need the skills and abilities to be able to go through it because nobody will do it for you. You will do it yourself. Do I have access to the tools, equipment, materials? Do you really have access? These are all the things you need to consider. Don't choose a topic that you will not have enough equipment to run through. You need to make sure that you have all the equipment and materials that you need to go through the research work. Do I have the time and money to complete it? That's very important. Can you really fund that project? You need to be able to fund it before you can go into it. Can I obtain adequate data? Is this something that you can go into and get enough data in the particular area you find yourself in? Does the problem meet the scope, significance, and topical requirements of the institution or periodical to which I will submit my report? Does it meet the requirements of your institution or is it below standard? You have to do something that is up to standard. Then you look at the social consideration. Will the solution of this problem advance the knowledge in the field appreciably? Will the findings be of practical value to educators? What will be the breadth of the application of the finding in terms of range of individuals, years of applicability, and areas of coverage? Will the investigation duplicate the work that has been done or is being done adequately by someone else? Are you duplicating somebody else's work or are you adding to what the person has done? If this topic has been covered, does it need to be extended beyond its present limit? You need to find out all this. If so many people have worked on that particular topic, you may need to choose something else. Is the topic sufficiently limited or to permit an exhaustive treatment, yet sufficiently significant to warrant investigating it? Will the conclusions of the study be of doubtful value because the tools and techniques available to conduct the inquiry are not adequately refined and sufficiently reliable? That's why you need to look at the tools. Will you be able to get enough equipment and materials to run it so that you don't go wasting your time? Will the study lead to the development of other investigations? So these are the things you need to know. Research proposal and its importance. Writing a research proposal. Components of a research proposal. The topic, background, statement of the problem, objectives of the study, significance, scope and limitation, research design, population, sample and sampling procedure, data analysis procedure. These are all the things you need to state off. Okay. Then we went on to topic 4, writing the project proper. Talks about introduction, review of literature, related literature. That's the literature review. You need to do a lot of work there, get a lot of materials related to the work you're doing. Your research methodology, that's the method you're going to use to do the work. Data analysis, by then you have finished your methodology, you analyze your data, interpret, and then the discussion, you discuss it. And the last one, summary of findings. You summarize, you conclude, and then you state your recommendation. Okay, that's the introduction, background to the study, statement of the problem. And then research questions and hypotheses. Of course, you have to have your hypothesis before you take off. And then objective or purpose of the study. You tell us why you're going into this research. What are your objectives? What do you have in mind? What do you need to have to achieve? What do you plan to achieve? Significance of the study, yes. Scope and limitation of the study. We talked about the scope and we talked about the limitation. The basic assumptions, operational definition of SEM. Okay. Chapter 2 is all about the literature review. Literature review, you get enough material, standard material. Your literature review should be properly organized. Get enough, tell us enough, as much as you need to know about your topic. Then you look at the research methodology, the methods you want to take in doing the work, the research design you want to use, population, the sampling techniques, instruments for data collection, procedure for administration of instruments, data analysis, research design method. So you need to give us all this, sample and sampling techniques, What techniques do you intend to use? You need to explain it in detail. We talk about random sampling, systematic, stratified, cluster, and purposive. These are all these different kinds of sampling methods: stratified random sampling, cluster, when they're all clustered together, purposive, and all the rest. Then instruments for data collection. A number of instruments that are used. You tell us your instruments. Some instruments you have questionnaire where you give out questions for people to answer. They give you their different views and then you gather them together. The interview, you have one-on-one interview. You have the ones you can make through calls and all. Observation, what you can observe by yourself. And then the documentary sources you get from different materials, okay? Now, we also talked about qualities of a good questionnaire. You should have an introductory letter to state explicitly the objectives and significance of the research. The items must be as short as possible. Don't bore your respondents. Don't give them too long stories to read. Its appearance should be attractive, very attractive. Everybody likes things that are attractive, neat and attractive. It will help people to work on it, answer your questions and give back to you, rather than use it to wrap things and discard them into the trash bin. Each item of questionnaire should deal with a single idea and worded as simply as clearly as possible. The questions must be objective and not suggest any lead as to the responses desired. Don't bring out answers from them. Allow them to give you the answers what they feel or by themselves. Don't tell them this is what I expect you to, put it this way, indirectly giving them what to give as answers. No. The questions must be set up in such a way as to start from general to the more specific. Then you have your interviews. You have your interviews where you can do your one-on-one interview. Then your observation, your documentary session. Okay, procedures for administration of instruments, data analysis methods, and then we went over to chapter 4, data presentation, analysis and discussion, how you present your data. The way you present your data really matters a lot. It should be presented very neatly. Okay, we have 4 levels of measurement, otherwise known as scale. We talked about all these: nominal scale, ordinal scale, interval scale, and the ratio scale. Okay. We talked about the frequency table, where you have your data and then the frequencies. The frequencies, how often that particular one occurs. Then we talked about the chart. We talked about the bar chart, like the one I gave you in your assignment. We talked about the pie chart too, the bar chart and pie chart. The pie chart is the one that comes in a circular form. Then we talked about the measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendency, we have the mean, where you add up the scores and you divide by the number of scores. We have the median, that's the ones that occur in the middle. We have those that, where you have odd number of data, the median will be just one single number. But when you have an even number of data, you have two values in the middle, and then you have to find the mean of the two of them to get the median. Then we have the mode. We said the mode is not the one with the highest value, but the one with the highest frequency. That is the one that occurs most. Okay? Then, for quantitative data, we have the range, the standard deviation, the variance, the coefficient of deviation. We said the range, you get the range by subtracting the smallest value from the highest value. And then we said The range does not consider, it always only considers the two extremes, the highest and the lowest. What occurs in between, it doesn't consider those ones. So that is where that is an inadequacy. And we said the standard deviation offsets this. It talks about the standard deviation, and we said the variance is the square of the standard deviation. That's your standard deviation of the square. When you square your standard deviation, you get your variance. When it also talks about the coefficient of variation, and we said that the coefficient of variation is the ratio of the standard deviation to its mean multiplied by 100. That is, whatever you get as your standard deviation over your mean, and then you multiply it by 100. It talks about the statistical hypothesis testing. It talks of type 1 error and type 2 error. Accepting and rejecting null hypothesis. When the null hypothesis is right and you reject it, when in fact you're supposed to accept it, that becomes type 1 error. But where you're not supposed to accept it, and when you do that is when it's not right, you're not supposed to accept it, and you go ahead and accept it, it becomes type 2 error. We also talk of inferential test, the t-test, analysis of variance, chi-square, correlation and regression analysis. The analysis of variance, that's the ANOVA. AN for analysis, O for off, and then VA for variance. Talk of chi-square, correlation and regression. And then we went over to chapter 5, where we talked of summary of findings, conclusions, and recommendations. That's towards the end of your work now. You have finished the major work, and then you're doing your conclusions, your inference, your conclusions, and then your recommendations. Okay? Then we now went over to bibliographic citations and referencing styles. That was the last topic. Introduction, bibliographic citations, where you cite within the text, the citation you do within the text, the ones you do at the end of the text, and some of them you also do both within and at the end. That's bibliography. Bibliography at the end. Then you have styles of referencing. The different styles that you use for references. It talks about the traditional or classic format. It talks about the author date format. We said the author date format is okay. For the traditional, we talked about the footnote. The footnote where you have the footnote at the end of the page. And it's not just use it for referencing, not just for referencing. It also helps to explain the work you have on the page. It makes it's so convenient for you. It makes it easy for you to just, when you're reading and you don't get to understand a particular one, you just look down the page. It's rather than going to turn the pages to find out where the meaning is. You look down the page and then you see the meaning and you continue with your reading. Very, very convenient. Then we talk about the Latin abbreviations that are used to make it easier. The EBDEM to denote same place as a previously cited work. The opera perecito to denote the citation is in the work cited. And then the IE that I told you is more common. Everybody knows IE. IDES to denote that is. The loco citato to denote the place cited. Okay, then we also talked of the author date format, which, because of its simplicity and ease of understanding, that is what most people use. We talked about citing within the text and citing at the end of the text. Where you cite, when the author's surname forms a part of the sentence, you put the author's surname first, and then the date comes in parentheses. When it doesn't, you put all in parentheses, but you have to separate it with a comma. Then we looked at the rules guiding the use of quotation marks. the rules guiding the use of quotation marks. Uh, well, we talked about where you have the major quotations and the other simpler ones inside the quotation. The major quotation starts with double quotation. Then within those ones that come within, you put them with single quotation mark. We also talked of rules guiding the ellipses or dots. We said the dots must be three dots, cannot be less than three, cannot be more than three. At times it comes at the beginning of the sentence, at times it comes in the middle of the sentence, and at times it comes at the end of the sentence. We also talked about citing inaccurate quotations. We said the quotations, sometimes you can summarize in your own words the way you understand it. Sometimes you can quote verbatim. But if you're quoting verbatim, every word, whether rightly put or wrongly put, you must have to state it exactly the way it is. But the only thing is that those words that are wrong, when you state them wrongly the way they are stated, you have to put a fixed sign beside it in order to show that this word is actually wrong. But ethically, I should state it the way it is. But this tick I am putting here means that it is wrong. There should be a better spelled word there. We have some examples where you have all stakeholders' hands must be on deck once to solve the problem once and for all. Rather than this ONES, which is wrong, it should have been ONCE. But ethically, you shouldn't just correct it there because it's not your quotation. You quote verbal, you're quoting verbatim, so everything must be the same way it is. So you put the ONES, but you put the fixed sign beside it. It's actually supposed to be ONCE, once and for all. Then you have others like since the day I am born. Am is wrong, so you have the stick beside it. It should be since the day I was born. And the next one, I prefer yam than rice. No, it should be I prefer yam to rice. Citing works of two authors, we talked about it. Still the same way you do that of one author. The only difference is that you put the names of the two authors. Like the one of one author that we had here, we had Issa 2007, just the name Issa. But here, where you have the two authors, you have the two names written out. Kolawole and Issa 2003. Okay? Now, depending on the location of the citation, your parentheses will depend on the location of the citation. Okay? Now, we also have citing the works of 6 authors, where you have more than 2 authors, but not more than 6 authors. You first of all write the names of all of them. For instance, this example, we have 4 authors here. The first time you state it, you have to state the names of the 4 of them. Olaoye, Kolawole, Issa, and Angus. Then 2003. That's the first time. Then subsequent ones, you simply put the first surname, which is Olaoye, and the rest take a tau. Once you see a tau, it tells you that it is not only Olaoye, there are other names, other authors. Then citing works of corporate authorship is still the same rule that you apply for works of corporate authorship, especially those that have 2 lengthy names. So this is just about our revision. As you prepare for your exams, I wish you all the best. God bless you and have a wonderful day. Bye.